Hello, everybody, and welcome again to the Nasara 17 podcast. We are so blessed to have our dear friend Jim Willie on, who is the editor-in-chief of golden-jackass.com, where they talk about financial events and maybe dabble a little bit into the politics, but mostly financial. So, hello, Jim. We're blessed to have you back again.
Oh, it's good to be back. Pardon my glasses, but as of a year ago, it's pretty hard to read. I'm not accustomed to wearing glasses, but I have to. Um, Been keeping up with a lot of events. I really don't care for the politics, but with every very serious financial bill before the Congress, there is politics, there is horse trading, there is deception, there's chicanery, there are buyouts, and it's a nasty, nasty, dirty business. And I'm coming to a conclusion um, that the United States is now on the global stage as being the most uh, delinquent, corrupt, and late for getting the rules and regulations lined up for digital finance. The whole world is watching our clown show. Um, I call them a bunch of corrupt geriatrics. And they're not just corrupt geriatrics, they're ignorant, corrupt geriatrics. They don't know anything about digital finance, and we're asking them to make the laws. Now, I got to point something out, and this is not an exaggeration. This is a very accurate statement. Following the Lehman incident, which is really a JP Morgan and a Goldman Sachs criminal act, the Lehman incident in 2008, following that, the Dodd-Frank financial regulatory bill was written by Citibank. Okay, the banker, the finance panels and commissions in the Senate, they don't know anything. Their expertise is in receiving campaign funds. They should really have a patch, right here that said JP Morgan or Bank of America or whatever, like the Mexican baseball professionals have. So you
Hmm.
know what their loyalty is.
Yep.
All right. I'm expecting, just like in 2009 or 8, late in 8, when the financial regulatory bill was urgently passed, they loaded in some bankruptcy laws in there that are very onerous. I'm expecting that the 2026 Clarity Act is going to have some nasty and dirty elements, and not exactly sure what they're going to be, but I have a decent idea that it'll be a backdoor for the digital ID. Now, notice that Trump and his team are calling out the Wall Street bankers for their insistence to collect all the bond yield on stable coins.
Uh-huh.
The banks and the exchanges are to take it all. Well, can you imagine someone going to a bank and saying, I've got a CD, but the interest that will go to the bank? No, the interest goes to the investor. So this is a basic violation because the big banks don't want a healthy, robust bond income to go to investors because it'll drain the traditional banks. But the traditional banks are kind of caught between a rock and a hard place because they have been forced for 15 years to buy the treasury bonds that the auctions have failed to find buyers and investors because we reduced and we brought about the zero interest rate policy. Um, well, we brought the ZIRP, zero interest, the low interest rate, the artificially low interest rate, because we had so much debt. So by having huge debt, we brought about lower interest rates, which hurt the pension companies, hurt insurance companies. They raised the premiums for insurance. And we have to deal with this low interest rate environment. And the big banks are insolvent because they were ordered to buy And 2 years ago they were 800 billion in the hole, insolvent. Now they're 500 or 450 billion dollars in the hole. They don't want to give up their interest. They don't want to give up the low interest that they give out because they lend out at a higher rate. The big banks are being threatened right now with the
Can't they?
digital with the
Go ahead,
digital
finish.
with the digital framework that will bring about higher interest rates. And the big Wall Street banks are stuck in the legacy low interest rate environment, and their entire business model is being threatened. So what I expect to happen, this is my conclusion. What I expect to happen is that Wall Street will cave in. They'll give the stable coin interest to the investor, whether it's an institution or individual, and they'll sneak in a backdoor clause into the Clarity Act that will eventually be discovered as permitting the digital ID. That's the big issue right now. They got caught once. I think they might get stopped. They might get caught in the act, and their attempt might fail. That's what I want to see happen. But Wall Street's in a very bad spot right now.
Yeah, I ever since the Exchange Stabilization Fund, we're not going to really touch on, but ever since the major crisis of '08, you can generally notice that any percentage they're paying, money market, all that, CDs, all that stuff went down after the financial crash. And wouldn't it historically they have to pay more interest on that now on investments that you're making on a personal level? But I know because I asked, I don't have this much money to invest, but I asked what's the lowest tier to get a decent interest rate as far as me just giving the bank my money and getting a decent yield back of interest. And they said it's 50,000, and then another bank said it's 100,000. So they're not even going to give you interest on anything. And when I was growing up, you could get $1,000 certificate of deposit and get, 5, 6% or whatever on that.
Well, it's not only a high amount to invest, Brock, it's a long period of time. They probably set a 10-year minimum. Not
For
1 year, not 2 year, 10-year minimum.
for the
Um,
CD?
for the CD, yeah.
Wow.
Okay, so it's a high amount and a long period, and that cuts out a lot of people. Okay, the big banks right now are being threatened by digital finance. And I got to say something. There's something very positive that people should know about and focus on, both. And that is the big banks, because of their dedication for 10 years of buying up the treasury bonds that the auctions couldn't sell. They're in the hole. They're insolvent. And let me just throw a number out. I'm just going to make up a number, and it's based on my belief that JP Morgan is 50 or 60 billion dollars in the hole, maybe 40, but they're in the hole. They're insolvent. So let's just call it 50 billion. I believe that they're going to invest in XRP and drive it to $200 and make a
In the near
trillion dollars.
future?
Yeah, and make $1 trillion.
Wow.
Okay, this is how they get out of insolvency. They need digital finance. They're not going to get out of their insolvent condition. They're not going to avoid obsolescence unless they bring about the Clarity Act, bring about good coins. I think they're going to be five winners.
Okay.
And
And each one will have a specialization, right?
that's exactly the point. They're not going to necessarily compete against each other. They're all going to be integral parts of the overall machinery. And we'll get to that shortly. But just imagine JP Morgan has been accumulating XRP and they've got 5 billion coins. They might have had a billion or billion and a half before, but now they're up to 5 billion. Well, if we take this to a $200 price, they've got $1 trillion. They're out of insolvency. They're not only out of insolvency, but they're going to be avoiding the corresponding bank escrow requirements. They're going to be able to go out and expand business and thrive. Let's suppose it only goes to 50 and they've got 5 billion coins. Well, that's
Okay.
$250 billion they get out of
Wow.
insolvency also. Okay. The big banks are going to make sure this thing happens. So there's going to be more than one winner. And golly, I just saw some bad analysis, and it was almost like inferential analysis. They said, well, we have this for a certain specialization in the digital architecture, and we have this coin for another specialization of the digital architecture, and we had an executive move from one company to the next. Oh my gosh, it looks like this company is going to lose out. No, they both win. This is a very important point. People need to understand this. There are going to be a number of winners. There's not going to be one company and one coin that dominates everything. There's going to be a transfer function. There's going to be a payment function. There's going to be a tokenization function. There'll be a function that integrates banking. There's going to be a bank to bank, like central bank linkage. There is
Instead of
so
Swift.
much.
Okay.
There's so much. Okay. I don't know if you like me using your name. I just don't know. Is that okay to use your name?
First name is okay. Please don't
Okay.
use last name.
I don't even know your last name. All right. So
You do.
no, I don't.
Oh, okay.
Let me make an analogy. The digital finance is like the transportation and distribution network for the US economy. Okay. One company might dominate trucking, or two. One might dominate airline transport. One might dominate the baggage handling. One might dominate, what would be a good one? Door-to-door delivery like FedEx. Another might dominate payments. Like I don't even want to give an example, but payment system when the delivery is finally made. One might be for logistics, for the distribution. You got all these different systems, and the result is something is made, something is delivered, and something is paid for. Okay, do you have one winner in the distribution system in the United States economy, supply chain?
No,
No, you got 100.
many. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to see, I think, at least 5 big winners and probably 20 to 30 participants, and the names of whom I don't think I'm going to be well versed in the second 10. I'm trying to solve and what's the word? Learn as best I can the major names. And I'm learning about Canton.
Hmm.
Their coin, it's called Canton Coin CC. They're the favorite among Wall Street. Goldman Sachs and Bank of New York Mellon are going to be working closely with Canton coin in order to tokenize and bring to the table stocks and bonds. Okay, that's not going to be Ripple's role. Ripple's going to be involved far more in the XRP bridge asset, neutral bridge asset. I'd like to explain to people what it means to be a neutral bridge asset. And a good example, is that okay to explain that right now?
Absolutely.
Okay. I'll give you an example of one that's not a bridge, that's not a neutral bridge asset, and that's XLM. Okay,
Okay.
Stellar XLM is going to be a very big player in the United States for final payments. And what there's a reason there's a reason that it'll be important only in the United States. It's because it uses USDC Circle, which is a dollar stablecoin.
Hmm.
Okay, so Stellar is dedicated for movements within the USDC dollar-based stablecoin. That's not neutral. That's dollar.
Yep.
It's not neutral.
Is it
So
tied at the hip or not necessarily?
I'm not exactly sure how it's tied. I believe that it sits atop the dollar-based system governed by the USDC stablecoin. I'm not great at some of the digital architecture concepts and lingo. I try to remain big picture so that I get the full big picture as best I can. And a lot of the nuts and bolts are really, really hard. Okay. There's a joke running around the Senate right now. I'll get back to XLM in a minute. There's a joke running around the Senate that it should be a requirement for a computer science bachelor's degree to be a senator. Okay. I have a computer science bachelor's degree. I have a master's and a doctorate in statistics. And
Which is not easy.
no, it's not easy. The combination turned out to be really, really good, but the transition from bachelor's in computer science to master's, it took an extra year. And I let's just say that I did
Let's
some
say a lot of senators couldn't complete the courses.
yeah, well, as a result, the bankers write the law.
Yeah, you're right.
They write the bill. And they're asked to write the bill, and we're not told that they write the bill.
Right.
And we're not told what the
It's hidden.
deal was to write the bill. There's a deal. Okay, back to XLM. So if a country like, say, Argentina has a deal with the United States, and they say, well, we need to do the final payment. Let's get this thing all lined up because we have many of these payments to make, and they're going to be regular. XLM is out. It's not neutral.
Okay.
It's okay. Let me just say that it's not to be used if the Argentines want a neutral.
Okay.
XLM is not neutral. The
XRP
Argentines,
is.
XRP is, but the Argentines might say, you've got problems with your US government debt. We don't want the dollar risk. So since we don't want the dollar risk, we'd rather have a neutral payment bridge asset.
That makes sense, though.
And that's how XRP will enter the equation time after time after time.
Sorry. I have a
Um,
tangential question ready whenever you're ready.
okay, because XRP is neutral, it's going to be chosen. XRP does not depend on the dollar. So even like an enemy state like Russia, and they're not really an enemy state. A lot of people think they are, but there are elements in Russia that might not trust the Americans. There are American elements in the United States that might not trust. If they go with XRP, we can get a grain deal with Russia.
Nice.
We could get a uranium deal. We could get a rocket deal. We could get a
We
what's
could have
another
real
one?
trading.
We could have real trade with rare earth metals with Russia and
Yep.
pay with XRP, and nobody will worry about the dollar risk because it's neutral. All right. What's your question?
So, as you know, we've been talking about cryptos for a long time. I started buying it just for the audience. I started buying in 2017, 2018, and the joke is hodl. You know, you hold it for a really long time, basically. So I was told, I was given the information, some intel that any coin that starts with an X will be used with the new system. So I'm repeating this rumor or what information, whatever, and throwing it to you and saying, do you think there's any truth to that? Any coin that starts with the letter X will be picked up in some way by the banking system.
I hadn't heard that before, but that's really funny, and it could be the case. Canton coin begins with a C. Canton coin is going to be, I think, a winner. I don't know anything about its basis as an investment. What I'm learning about is its role in the financial architecture, the digital
Okay.
architecture. It is favored by Goldman Sachs and Bank of New York Mellon for stocks and bonds, and I believe derivatives.
Is
So
it any way associated with this Chinese? Because Canton is a
no,
Chinese.
Canton, Ohio is the Hall of Fame, and no one accuses the NFL of being Chinese.
I understand.
Okay, Canton is,
There's a Canton in almost every state in the Midwest, so I get it.
yeah, I don't know of any linkage at
Just a
all.
question.
I know it's an interesting, funny question. Um, okay, I have some, I wonder about stuff like that, but let's not go there. Um, oh, I might as well just say it. The Rockefellers run China, and they have for 30 years. So maybe there is some linkage. I don't really know. We may find out later. But the important point is that there are going to be several winners, just like you have several major car companies, just like you have several major winners in, you know, uh, like internet service, just
Right.
like you have several major
ISPs.
winners in ISP and in airlines
Yep.
and military contractors. What I don't like is the mergers. I didn't
Right.
like ExxonMobil as a merger. I didn't like that. I don't like Office Max and Office Depot as a merger. I didn't like McDonnell Douglas as a merger. I don't like big companies merging with big companies because what they do is they get critically close to the 50%.
Yep.
And as a result, they become so dominant that you can't call them on their corruption because they're too systemically important. I mean, we got a phrase, it's called the systemically important financial institutions, SIFI. That means they can't fail.
Too big to fail. That's why we bailed them out in 2008 and 9.
Right. And right now, I mean, I just had a consult call and the client was curious about something. I said, we have a few banks in the United States that should be shut down, but they're too big to fail. They're systemically important banks.
Yep.
They're insolvent and they've been insolvent for 10 years and they're not shut down.
And they
They get
let go ahead.
they get a Fed patch
Right.
when they get in trouble. And we don't hear about it. We get rumors about it. In late January, there was one bank that got a $17 billion overnight patch. And the next night, there was another bank that got a 35 billion. Did I say million? I meant billion. 17 billion and a 35 billion patch. Two banks. That's 52 billion. And that's the Fed. And you know, you can't say, well, that's taxpayer money. No, 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 no. The Fed is not taxpayer money. The Fed is
Money
nobody's
out of
money.
muddy on a thin air.
Thin air. Funny money.
Printed.
Printed money. But we as citizens have the right to know what banks are receiving artificially produced money in order to keep them solvent
Yep.
so that we can understand the risk of investing a CD with them or a bank account with them or having a loan with them.
I agree.
And what I learned based on my connections and you know as imperfect as they are but as maybe adept as they are also the 17 billion with Bank of America and the 35 billion with JP Morgan. Okay, the bigger they are, the bigger their red ink. Okay, therefore I believe Ripple obtaining the banking license means Wall Street is investing in XRP and they're hoping to make a lot of money. And, you know, they can make
Makes sense.
enormous capital gains and sell a small portion, borrow against another larger collateralized portion.
Pay off their debt.
And before you know it, they're out of insolvency.
Exactly. No
That's
more debt.
that's what I think is about to happen. So it's really important how we get the Clarity Act completed. Um, let's just say that I'm a little bit worried and I'm also very much excited by the Clarity Act and its imminent completion. I believe Wall Street urgently needs this. And they're being called out by Trump, and that only hastens the agreement. I like this. I like what I see. I like seeing that Wall Street got called out for a backdoor to the digital ID. I don't
Yep.
want a digital ID. What Trump has promised, and so far so good, is the United States is not going to have a central bank digital currency. There's irony
Right.
here. There are 20 different countries like Georgia and Montenegro. That Georgia in West Asia, not
In the Caucasus.
in the Caucasus. Yes. Um, they have a central bank digital currency. And that's a good thing because they're not looking to dominate the entire planet.
Yep.
The United States having a CBDC, central bank digital currency, organized and operated and designed by Wall Street banks is a bad thing.
I
Okay,
agree.
Trump has already said we want corporate stable coins and we want a big list of them. That way they'll compete against each other. They'll keep each other honest. Okay, this is very exciting. I talk about a lot of these things in the newsletter. There was a big controversy over stable coins last month. It has continued. I don't expect it's going to go away because the big banks are threatened by healthy staking yields. Okay, for instance, if you have a crypto account and you own a bunch of coins in Kraken, you
Yep.
can earn, I think, it Bitcoin for staking. It's like interest on your account.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're holding the coins and not selling them, so they're giving you an interest.
Um,
Pay?
Actually,
No?
I think the Kraken account does not require staking.
Oh, okay. I have
The,
coins that do require staking.
yes, yes, and that's a good thing. Kraken, this is, and I need to confirm this, but it seems like Kraken is saying if you got an account with us in our coin exchange, we will pay you some Bitcoin for
Just for
having an
hold.
account.
Wow.
Not, I
Hmm.
didn't say staking.
Wow. Okay.
Okay, I need to confirm that. Okay, this is going to be the Wild West all over, and the big corporations that are at a disadvantage are exactly the ones that have been stuck in the low interest rate environment for the last 15 years. Okay, it's hard to believe, but Lehman happened 17 years ago. And this October, yeah, 2007, 18 years ago. Oh, wait a minute. 2007, 19 years ago. 19 years ago, coming up this autumn. And by the way, I got to boast um, with the help of a couple of my colleagues, and I gave a 1 year notice, 1 year advance notice of the Lehman collapse. 1 year.
Wow.
And how did I do it? One colleague of mine said, Jim, you got to take a look at the 5 year bond insurance for Lehman Brothers. It's called the credit default swap. It's also known as bond insurance on their 5 year corporate bond. It went up, 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 up.
Hockey
And
stick.
it did a hockey stick. A lot of people say, well, how do you know what's high? Well, I'll tell you what the average is. It's about 12 to 15 basis points per year. 0.125 to 0.15%. Like
Increase. Yeah.
an eighth or 1/6 of 1%.
Hmm.
Okay. With Lehman, it went up close to 1%, got up to 80 basis points. And I
Wow.
said, red light. And that was a year in advance. When it was about 7 months before the big crisis, it got over 1%. It was 110, 120 basis points. I said, we've got an imminent failure. It could be a month, could be 2 months, could be 3 months. And a lot of people were saying, no, it's okay. It's all fine. And I said, if it were all fine, the credit default swap, the bond insurance would not be so high. The insiders were insuring their bonds with Lehman Brothers.
Yep.
I got to say this, Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan made it a crime scene. They had more losses. They had bigger, what do you call it? Bigger bond exposure than Lehman did by a factor of 2 or 3. But we call it the Lehman incident, the Lehman crisis. And what happened when JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs took over control and they forced AIG and they threatened Hank Greenberg, they took over AIG and controlled all of the credit default swaps. And JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs gave themselves 100 cents on the dollar. And they gave the next tier 60 cents on the dollar. And they gave the next tier 30 cents on the dollar.
So
So
they
it was,
lost nothing and everybody else got screwed.
that's exactly it. And Hank Greenberg lost control of his own company, AIG. What was that? American Insurance
Insurance
Group.
group.
Yeah, something like that. Hank Greenberg got threatened. So they gave him I heard they gave him like $100 million and said, shut up.
A golden parachute.
Yeah, yeah, you could call it that, or you could call it just a big fat bribe. Shut up. You've got your retirement. We don't need
Hmm.
you anymore. Here's your big stack of money. Everything will be fine. If you don't take it, we'll kill members of your family.
I'm sorry, can I ask a quick question? So obviously our banks do fractional reserve lending. I'm going to make this dumbed down because, I'm not a financial expert, and I consider that you definitely are. But I understand it before the crash of 2008, you know, the amount they held versus how much they lend out. What would you say? That's a 1 to 4 or a 1 to 2 ratio? What was it before the crash?
On fractional banking, I think it's pretty steadily been 10 or 15 to 1. But
Did it increase
that
after the crash?
I'm trying to answer your question. It's a complex question. Um, for standard loan granting, it was like 10 to 15 to 1 for fractional banking. The Lehman incident, which is what we call it, the grand financial crisis, had 100 to 1 leverage for certain bond instruments, 100 to 1. They also had options on the bond oh gosh, they call them collateralized uh, loan obligations, CLO. And they vowed to get rid of the CLO. What they did was they changed the name and they never got rid of the concept. We still have the same collateralized loan obligations, which are just packaged, leveraged bonds and mixed in with layers of garbage. We still have the same thing that happened in Lehman. It's happening again. I expect this crash will be Lehman times 5. I've been saying that for 3 years, but it's going to be different this time because we will not permit any Wall Street bank to fail because they're all now part of the brethren. There's no one bank that they can say, you're not one of us. In 03, it was Bear Stearns. They killed them off because they were long gold and short the dollar. In 08, they killed Lehman. And it's an interesting story why they killed Lehman. Because they weren't diversified. They were basically a bond factory. They weren't diversified like the other ones. So they said, well, you're one of us, but you're different. So we're going to kill you. And if you don't like it, we'll murder your family. Okay. This is going on over and over and over and over again. Right now, the death threats are Robert Kennedy. He cannot
Yep.
go after Pfizer. He cannot go after Big Pharma. What they're doing is they're undermining because the entire family of Robert Kennedy Jr. is being threatened. Okay, I'll leave that alone. I just want to leave that alone. The leverage in Wall Street, it's not just fractional banking. It's leverage for their bond portfolios. It's leverage for the new collateralized loan obligation. I don't even know what they call it now. They changed the name. They're scummy. Okay. They've also not gotten rid of remdesivir, which is a kidney killer. It helped to create a lot of deaths. They wanted a lot of deaths.
Bad.
They changed the name of remdesivir and they're now still recommending it for treatment for influenza.
Jeez.
Okay. It's kind of like you get a lemon car, like the Edsel, the Ford Edsel. How would it be if they just changed the name from Edsel to Eagle and they're still selling it? That's what they're doing. But because they run the Department of Treasury, they get away with it. Because they control the revolving door for the regulators, they get away with it. Right now, we got two regulatory bodies that are important. One is the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC,
SEC.
and the other one is the Commodities Future Trading Commission, the CFTC. And the way they like to divide the jurisdiction is the SEC governs stocks and bonds, and the CFTC governs the commodity, because that's the C, Commodity Futures Trading Commission. And it's not simple anymore, and it's almost amusing because XRP, for instance, is not a stock, it's not a bond, it's not a commodity. No one knows what the heck it is. It is a neutral bridge asset for completing a payment. Well, what is that? Okay, XRP is an asset. Beyond that, who knows?
Well,
Okay,
it's a brand new technology, so it might need a brand new category.
digital coin.
Yeah.
They can't classify a
Well, the
lot of digital
SEC went
coins.
after them, right?
Yeah, the SEC went after him, and it's becoming more clear. This is a very controversial thing to say. News has come out. It needs more confirmation. I don't have the confirmation, but news has come out that Epstein ordered Gensler to go after Ripple and give them a hard time. Let's just leave that alone. I put it out there. Let's leave it alone. All right. There's a lot going on. These are exciting times. I try to cover a lot of it in the newsletter. But if we didn't cover the Iranian conflict, we would be very much irresponsible. So
Do you want me to give some
go ahead.
information on that I've been
Why,
hearing?
why don't you give some intel, and then we'll have a discussion. But I don't want to say anything until you say something.
Okay. Well, as everybody knows, we've been doing a targeted bombing campaign. Um, I have sources with that are Iranian, so I'll just say, if you're watching this and you're somebody that's a conservative and likes Tucker or is anti-war or whatever, I get it. Okay. As Christians, we're supposed to be anti-war in general. However, the IRGC has been killing their own people for a long time. I believe that the just thing to do is to target them, not only because the rumor is that they already have a nuclear weapon, and that the only part that they're missing, and it's more than a rumor, I'll say the information, the only part they're missing is the extra long range part of the missile, which is the intercontinental part of the ballistic missile, the ICBM. They have intermediate range missiles, but the intermediate range that can hit Israel roughly 1,000 kilometers uh, are not sized properly to take the payload of their nuclear weapon. They have found 60% enrichment. A old school nuclear weapon, like the ones that were Fat Boy and what was the other one? The ones Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I can't remember. One was Fat Boy. Those were a shotgun type. Can be
Little
used.
little
Go ahead.
something,
Yeah.
little something. Fat boy and little man, or I can't remember. Little something.
Exactly. Those shotgun type can be used with lower enrichment, 60%. So they already have them, and they have chemical and biological weapons that was given to them from Saddam Hussein. So again, you're going to hear with Iraq that they did not have weapons of mass destruction, but they did. I've personally seen pictures of them buried in the desert. They buried whole entire squadrons of planes and tanks underneath the sand in the Iraqi desert. But Saddam knew that we were invading, and right before then, gave some to Iran and some to Assad. And some of those weapons, chemical and biological, sit in Damascus today. And then the Iranian ones are underground in their vast, vast network of tunnels. Their tunnels are very good, deep, reinforced, and they're full of drones, etc. So I'll wrap this up with saying the one of the Iranian commanders, I can't remember who, was talking to NBC and he said, "We're waiting for phase two. We want the United States to invade." The reason for that is because they have hidden chemical and biological weapons. God forbid if we did a ground invasion, they would let those loose en masse and take out United States troops and their own people. So there's more than one reason why we don't want to do a ground invasion. But I believe that our targeted campaign is the right thing to do and is the just thing to do. And I have also said and passed the message up the chain to government officials that I'm in contact with, no ground invasion. And there's more than one reason why.
um, my turn. War is messy. 160 years ago, a lot of people in high command thought that the Civil War would last about 2 or 3 months. It lasted 2 or 3 years. We're going to be dealing with retaliatory strikes. We're going to be dealing with a lot of targeting of the energy production facilities in the Gulf region.
Yep.
I'm focused on the economic and financial consequences. I'm not a war correspondent. I'm not going to sit here and say this invasion is just, or this type and this level of attack is correct or justified. That's not my role. We have a 30–40% increase in the price of crude oil. There are a lot of states, including states that aren't really pro-war at all, and their gasoline prices are going up. What tends to happen is that it doesn't matter whether the gasoline was produced from cheaper oil 3 months ago to enter the distribution system. What matters is the current crude oil price, and it dictates immediately a jack up in the gasoline price, the diesel price, and the natural gas that is supplying your own home for your winter heating bills up north.
Is that because of speculators?
No, it's just because they can.
Oh,
There might be some, let me just make up something that's crazy. It could be that Chevron or Citgo will say, we're going to keep the prices low for another month. Or not. Okay? They can
so they do.
or not. If Citgo doesn't, their competitors will make a lot more money. If Citgo does it, then they'll all make more money. They're making money, and we even created a windfall profit tax 40, 50 years ago to address the issue of energy supplies that are in the system from a lower cost basis. Very nasty, very interesting stuff.
Hmm.
I believe what we're going to get is a more powerful recession in the US economy from the price of oil. It's going to trickle down into all kinds of industries. Okay, tractors use diesel on the farms. Trucks use diesel in the distribution of food products. Okay, we're going to see food and price inflation because of the crude oil prices. I believe we're going, let me just back up a little bit. I've been making the point that we've been lying, the government has been lying about price inflation for the longest time. And since the 2020 year, we've been lying pretty heavily about the price inflation. Since 2022, I think the lie that you see in John Williams' shadow government statistics, the lie is about 5% on price inflation. It could be 6%, but let's just call it 5%. Well, if we're now struggling at a 1% economic growth from government statistics, which are full of lies, if we've got a 1% economic growth and we got a 5% lie on price inflation, then we've got a -4% recession. And in my book, -3% is a depression. I believe we've been in an inflationary depression for several years. Okay, if we get a worse situation because of the crude oil price, I believe we're going to admit that we're in a recession when we have been reality-wise in a in a inflationary depression. My point is that we've been in an inflationary depression for a few years. We've been saying we're in a low growth environment when it's a stinking lie. I think we're going to say because of the Iranian nuclear facilities and processing and refinement and their lies and their terrorism, which I'm sure is very real, we're going to say that the United States has suffered a recession because of the Iranians.
Right. May
And
I go ahead?
it's going to be deep, and it's going to be coupled with AI, artificial intelligence layoffs.
Yep.
And there is conversation about universal income. I find it very interesting, and I find
UBI.
it full of fantasy.
You're
I
talking
believe,
about universal basic income, right?
yes, I am. I think it is a fantasy. And if the US government is running $1 trillion deficit every quarter or every, who knows, 5 months, where's it going to come from? Is it going to come from Microsoft and Google and Amazon and Netflix and Facebook? Are they going to pay universal income?
Unlikely.
Is it the US government, which is in a deficit? Are they going to pay universal income? Are the narcotics organizations under the US government wing, are they going to pay universal income?
It'd be nice.
I think that's going to be the universal income, 00. And we're going to get a very nasty round two for motivated cabal depopulation. And I don't wish to discuss that any further.
Okay, we'll leave it there. I know you're getting pressed on time. Let me tell you what I'm hearing in the back channels. There's a highly likelihood, no, I don't speak Persian, so it's called Karg Island, Kharg. They are currently planning scenarios where they use special forces to invade and take over the island. It's about 15 miles off the coast of Iran. It's a major refinery island. Okay. You're right by saying that the Gulf nations and our coalition is going to strike a lot of their oil refineries in Iran, but that's the biggest one. There's major talk. They're already mission planning right now to do that hit, okay? And I'm not revealing anything sensitive here because if you have half a brain, you would realize that that is, and everybody kind of knows that that could happen. So I'm just letting you guys know now. What do I think would happen with that? I mean, obvious. I think it's pretty obvious that the crude oil would go up probably, over $100 a barrel, maybe hit 120, but definitely let you chime in.
I think we're going to see over $100 oil for the next 4, 5, 6 months. It'll be responsible for a very powerful recession in the US economy that is admitted, but it'll actually be a fierce inflationary depression that'll be worsened. Okay, you're talking about allied hits of Karg Island, which is an Iranian facility. Aramco has been hit by Iranian missiles and drones. UAE has been hit by
Hmm.
missiles and drones. Dubai has been hit by Iranian missiles and drones. Oman has been hit. Qatar has been hit. Bahrain has been hit. And I think we're approaching a point where the Gulf monarchies are going to be told your entire energy production facilities will be considered military targets unless you disinvite the United States military from the entire Gulf region. And I think it's going to have consequences with the US treasuries, and it's going to be extremely powerful in the impact. I believe the United States is going to lose the entire Gulf region.
Maybe.
I'd like to end it there.
Okay, we'll
This
end
is
it
a
there.
very difficult topic. I have some other commitments right now that I mentioned, but we have already seen, I think, at least 4 different Gulf monarchies attacked for their energy production facilities.
Hmm.
This could be amplified tenfold with zero production from the entire Gulf region soon. The Gulf monarchies are being given now an ultimatum to disinvite the United States from their Air Force bases, their naval ports, and what do you call it? Permission over the air. They have a word,
Airspace.
airspace. Permission to use their airspace. This is going to be very, very powerful for the consequences of what has been going on in attacks and decapitation in Iran. I'll repeat it. I believe the United States is going to lose the entire Gulf region as allies, and we're going to lose their support in treasury bond purchases. This will accelerate the dollar decline and will bring about an acceleration also in the reverse carry trade for the Japanese yen. And I think it'll be the conditions for XRP rising 100-fold. This is going to be historic. I'm not in favor of this war. I don't believe much of any intel coming from the United States sources, but this is a very difficult time. That's why I don't wish to debate it. I respect your sources. I respect other sources that I have. Let me just say that there are other angles for motivating the attack on the Iranian high command. There are other factors involved, and it has to do with dissolving the Iran nuclear deal.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true.
Let me just say the Iran nuclear deal had a lot to do with things that weren't nuclear.
I'm sure.
Okay. I'd like to promote, I want to say something here. On the first week of February, I left Costa Rica for points in the Southeast United States. And I've been setting up shop. I have a little bit of an echo in this room because my living room is basically a desk on a carpet. And the only other furniture I have in my living room is a bicycle, which I call my blue limousine. I'm very active as a cyclist. I've had a very difficult month in the transition, full of anxiety. By setting up shop and completing the February report in what I believe to be a competent result, I have less anxiety, but I'm dealing with a difficult situation. Just think of 20 checklist items, and I've done 22 of them. I've got a few remaining that keep me awake between 2 and 4 a.m. Not every night, but some. And I appreciate assistance. I appreciate donations, and I really like orders for the newsletter. I'm busy with the newsletter. I'm very bothered that the anti-spam laws have interfered with bulk mass emails. I'm very bothered by that. I don't want to discuss that much, but I've made a move. I'm in the Southeast US. I'm in the Eastern time zone. I'm realizing a dozen very serious advantages of being back in my native country, but I'm also noticing 2 or 3 disadvantages and things of a personal nature that it's not exactly harm. It's just pain. I miss a certain friend. The food quality, believe it or not, in Costa Rica is better.
I agree.
We have, just organized poisoning of wheat.
Yep.
We have more expensive and lower quality full chicken, chicken roasters.
Mm-hmm.
I've already noticed that, but there are a lot of other huge advantages. My mother was a piece of work. She was a little Irish woman. My dad met her in World War II in London during the bombing. And she said, Jimmy, when you're living alone and you're cooking for yourself, just buy some V8. So I've been buying V8. I chugged down a bunch of V8. That was my lunch because I had some things to do today. V8, that's not available in other countries.
Really?
No, not at all. What they have is a Jumex,
Oh,
Jumex.
yes. Yes, that's right.
That's
Yes.
a tomato juice, and it's not the same.
No,
Okay,
it's not.
V8 is not just tomato juice. You've got carrots in there. You've got celery in there. You probably got onions. They call it eight because there are eight vegetables in it. And I am going to have a lot more V8 and it's not expensive. There are a lot of things that are not as expensive here with food, but there are some that are loaded with poison. Okay.
Only thing that's better here, I believe, is the beef.
The steaks are great.
The steaks are great.
Texas and Ohio. Oh my gosh. Ohio and Indiana do not get the recognition that they deserve for the best steaks. I think they're better than the Texas steaks. Okay. I know Texans are going to say, who the hell you think? No, the reason is that the Ohio and Indiana steaks are made from beef that are more more grazing fed, the grasses, the
Grass
grains,
fed. Yeah,
and grass fed. Texas is tougher beef, but Texas has got a lot of different grass. They do their best, and I love Texas, and I've always loved Texas. I like the spirit of Texas,
I do
and
too.
it's good to be back. Um, Go to www.golden-jackass.com, sign up for the newsletter, make a donation if you don't like newsletters. Make a donation. I've got a lot of people who don't exactly like to read anymore. They ask me, well, I'm having trouble finding your shows. Well, I wish my website manager didn't have to work 3 jobs. Okay. He's in the Netherlands. He's a great guy. He's bilingual and he's done a lot to improve the newsletter and the website. I love him. I love him like a brother. Oh my gosh. And I got to say something. This is just a personal thing. It's MJ. MJ, if you're watching this, I love you, lady. I love you. And I'm not talking about Michael Jordan. I'm talking about a donor.
Must be
Um,
Michael Jackson.
no, it's MJ, and she's a wonderful lady. And
That's great. She's
and
must be a Christian.
absolutely. Okay, thanks for having me on. And it's been real. We're in dangerous times. That in the last month, the danger level has been multiplied. uh, if they don't bring the war to the United States soil, I will be tremendously surprised. It has already begun.
I will praise God.
Okay. Thanks for having me on. Bye
Thank you,
now.
Jim. Bye bye.